August 2005, a group of 5 young adults made the decision to explore an obscure underwater cave located on the side of Y Mountain in Provo, Utah, known as the Cave of Death. Unbeknownst to them, a fatal danger awaited inside, with only one of them returning alive. This incident is now known as the Gollum Cave tragedy. On the evening of Wednesday, August 17, a gathering of 5 friends went out for dinner, and during their conversation, the topic of a hidden cave on the side of Y Mountain came up. Situated near the BYU campus, this mountain was well known among local students for the existence of this cave. Just the year prior, 2 young cavers had meticulously mapped out Gollum's cave. At first glance, the cave did not appear welcoming, as it was submerged in a foot of water and stood a mere 4 feet in height. To navigate through the nearly 100-foot entrance tunnel, individuals had to crouch down and wade through a shallow stream. While this may not have been appealing to most hikers, those familiar with the secret cave found the challenge intriguing. The hidden section of the cavern required individuals to lower themselves through an 18 by 24 inch water-filled hole in the ground. Even for those aware of what waited on the other side, this moment of truth could give pause to even the most daring explorers. That night, the group made the decision to test their mettle in this dark and unwelcoming cave. By the time they arrived at the cave area, it was already 2 o'clock in the morning. They spent some time outside before finally entering the shallow cave. Jennifer Galbraith, who had previously traversed the watery tunnel, reassured the others that they could hold their breath and swim the 15 feet to reach the inner cave. Despite experiencing hypothermia and losing consciousness during her prior visit, she was still eager to introduce her friends to this hidden gem. Blake Donner, Scott MacDonald and Ariella Singer all reached a consensus to give it a shot. However, Joseph Ferguson, the 5th friend, opted to wait outside the main cave until their return. Armed with only a single flashlight, the 4 of them navigated their way towards a small opening on the cave floor. It was now 4:30 in the morning, and the outside world was engulfed in complete darkness. One by one, they mustered the courage to lower themselves into the narrow passage, which was filled with icy water. Jennifer took the lead, since she was the only one familiar with the route. They observed her head vanish beneath the water, leaving behind a faint ripple as she progressed towards the other end. The water-filled tunnel was no wider than a refrigerator door, measuring merely 2 feet across and 4 feet in height. Following Jennifer's guidance, Blake, Scott and Ariel each descended into the passage. A rope fastened to a rock in the main cave guided them through the underwater tunnel and was tied to a piece of wood in the inner cave. Given the confined space of the tunnel, it seemed unnecessary to have a rope leading back to the entrance hole, as it would appear impossible to miss. Unfortunately, this assumption proved to be incorrect. Brian Lamprey, an experienced cave explorer, recounted how he had overshot the exit hole on his return journey and found himself at a dead end, approximately 4 feet past the hole. In a state of panic, he realised that he was surrounded by a wall of rock. Desperately, he pushed himself backward, reaching out for the ceiling until he finally reached the exit hole. The additional time it took him to find the hole made him certain that he was facing imminent death. He was incredibly fortunate to locate the hole just moments before inhaling a lungful of water. On this particular day, all 4 individuals successfully completed the short swim to the small cave a mere 15 feet away. The cave provided enough space for them to stand and move around slightly. Its height measured approximately 6.5 feet, with a peak in the centre reaching around 9 feet. This left approximately 3 feet of airspace above the water level. Joseph patiently waited for his friends to return, uncertain of their intended duration inside the cave. With no established plan in place, he found himself simply biding his time. After close to an hour, he ventured into the cave and peered into the watery abyss, yet found no trace of the group or their flashlight. The clock now read 5:30 AM, leaving him at a loss for what steps to take next. He reached out to a couple of friends familiar with the cave and eventually contacted the authorities at 6:25 a.m. As the group swam deeper into the cave, it was likely that they were filled with nerves, breathless, and their hearts racing with adrenaline. Upon emerging from the water, they would have undoubtedly taken a deep breath of relief. Unfortunately, the air quality in this confined space was probably poor. In the realm of caving, the term bad air refers to any air that deviates from the normal composition of 21% oxygen and 79% nitrogen with trace amounts of other gases. Given the stagnant nature of the cave and the lack of fresh water source, the accumulation of carbon dioxide was highly probable due to various factors. Over time, as visitors lingered in the inner chamber, oxygen levels would have diminished while carbon dioxide levels rose. Limestone caves are known to harbour increased levels of carbon dioxide due to erosion and seepage from decaying plant matter. Additionally, the presence of some previously burning candles inside would have further depleted the available oxygen. With no ventilation, carbon dioxide would have settled at higher concentrations near the water's surface. This gradual process would have gone unnoticed by the friends exploring the hidden cave, unaware of the deteriorating air quality within the inner chamber. Even if the cavers had only stayed for a brief period, their reduced ability to think, move and breathe would have made the return swim a perilous task. Upon realising the difficulty in breathing inside the cave, they would have quickly understood the urgency to retreat. Due to the small entrance hole, only one person could navigate the narrow tunnel at a time and pull themselves up to the exit. Jennifer was the first to exit, but struggled to locate the opening before running out of breath. With oxygen levels around 10 to 12% in the cave, her breath-holding capacity and critical thinking skills would have been compromised. She would have had only a minute before losing consciousness. Without the rope in hand, finding the exit would have been a frantic search along the tunnel's ceiling. Unaware of Jennifer's struggle for survival, the other three were left in the suffocating darkness of the inner cave. After a brief wait, Ariel would have been the next to exit. With carbon dioxide levels at 2 or 3%, her breathing rate would have increased. Gasping for air before submerging, she would have swum desperately to locate the opening, feeling the body of her friend in a narrow, dark tunnel. The passage was meant to be clear, but with no space for two heads to pass through the tight opening, Ariel would have been in a panic to get air, possibly unaware of her friend's dire condition. At this juncture, Blake and Scott would have been inhaling the contaminated air for a few additional minutes. In the absence of light, they would have experienced the effects of decreased oxygen levels, increased carbon dioxide, and the anxiety that comes with such an inhospitable breathing environment. Following a brief pause, the next companion would have entered the narrow, waterlogged tunnel. Already weakened, Blake would have been determined to swiftly navigate through this swim. He would have been startled to come across the two girls still adrift in the water ahead of him. The sudden alarm would have caused confusion regarding the correct direction to take, as the exit should have been directly in front of the person ahead. He might have realised that Ariel was motionless and that he needed to guide her towards the exit to rescue her. In a tunnel that was merely 2 feet wide and 4 feet deep, manoeuvring past or pushing anyone forward would have been exceedingly challenging. The final spelunker, patiently waiting in the dimly lit depths of the inner cave, would have endured the longest suffering. Undoubtedly, he must have been yearning to escape this place indefinitely. However, his journey through the tunnel was abruptly halted when he stumbled upon his companions. In such a weakened state, he likely succumbed to unconsciousness swiftly. Once the authorities arrived, rescuing the trapped individuals within the inner cave proved to be no easy feat. They promptly introduced air into the cave in an attempt to replenish the depleted oxygen levels. Simultaneously, they extracted water to create a pocket of breathable space within a connecting tunnel for the rescuers to access. As the water levels gradually receded, they made a grim discovery: the lifeless body of Jennifer Galbraith gently floating just inside the tunnel. After an additional hour of pumping, they located the remaining 3 friends, Ariel, Blake and Scott, huddled together facing towards the exit hole. Based on the evidence found at the scene, the information provided by Joseph Ferguson, the autopsies confirming drowning as the cause of death, and the accounts of other explorers who have encountered difficulties in the tunnel, we can deduce what likely transpired. It is difficult to fathom how 4 healthy young adults could drown unless there were issues with the air quality. Within a mere 15 feet, 4 friends met their untimely demise. They were vibrant individuals, aged between 18 and 28, in the prime of their lives. Following the recovery of their bodies, the cave entrance was sealed with concrete to prevent further adventurers from entering and potentially losing their lives.